Here I've got a Schlage lock. It's one of the keypad locks. It's been several years old now. I installed two of these, and this one's been working pretty good until recently when I tried to unlock it from the outside. The knob sometimes, and this is a problem, it's intermittent. Sometimes it doesn't catch and it won't unlock the door even though the code's correct. No flashing red lights. It just kind of clicks and then it spins free. Of course, from the inside it works fine. And I'm going to take it apart and see if we can figure out what's wrong with it. And both the inside and the outside, I'm really impressed that the plating is held up very well, especially on the outside. So that's of course where the battery is. So if you've got one of these, you've probably replaced the batteries once or twice. I've replaced these, well, I'm going to say several times, well, not that many. My other Schlage, it's in the cold garage, and it eats batteries. So a few years ago, I replaced the battery with a plug, a simulated battery plug, because it's like where my wife can't see it, so she doesn't like it, but it looks terrible. And then I ran a wire across the door, put a little loop out here by the hinge, and then ran it to an outlet. And maybe I'll show that to you later. Oh, and incidentally, one thing I didn't notice, but I saw from looking at other videos, is there's the normal and the lockout. And if you put this thing on the lockout, if you put it on the lockout, and this is right in here, I believe. Yeah, so right now, it's hard to see in there. But right now it's horizontal, which is normal. But if you turn it to lockout, then apparently the keypad will stop working. So I've never known that, and I've never had any reason to use it, but it's kind of interesting information. So that's where that is. And the instructions are basically right here. All right, so let's get this straight up and down. So the door's unlocked, and get these two screws out. That one should fall off on the outside, maybe. Yeah, it's loose here. It's loose there. We'll see. Two bolts out of the way. So all we did was pull it off the X from here, and then there's a wires coming from this side here. And it looks like I can unplug that. So we might try that. I probably could have done that before I took the screws out. Oh, it gives me a little more slack too. Don't see that clip. I think it's just pushed on. So we unplug that, pull the plug through the hole, and now we can take this out of the way. So we'll just slide this thing out. It's actually pretty heavy. So this has got some torque screws in it. So I'm going to take this over to the workbench, and we'll try and take this apart and see what it looks like. So we're at my work desk here. These torque screws are a T15. Needed a little more reach for these two here. And all 6 of those screws look like the same thread, same length. Okay. So we got the knob. Keypad buttons. I think what I'm interested in is actually underneath here. It's got a little bit of a grease on it. Got 2 more screws. Also look like, oops, maybe they're not T15s. Those will be T10s. sticky. And that comes off. So as I understand it from watching other videos, is that this pin, no matter what position this is in, when the solenoid activates, then that pulls this up, pushes that pin in, no matter where it's at. And that pin engages with this sprocket, and that's what lets you do it. So if the pin doesn't go all the way up or the pin's falling out, you can see right there the pin's kind of sticky, but there's a little spring there. So I'm going to plug it in. We'll see how it works when it's plugged in. Yeah, it's not quite pulling up all the way. I don't know if you can see that, but I think it's got to pull up all the way to get that pin engaged. Whoops, and now the pin fell out. All right, so let's back up here a little bit. Let's get that pin in there with the spring. Okay, we'll do it this way. Okay, so this piece here, it's got a little pin in there, and that pin just engages with the spring wherever it naturally will go. So one of the things that can happen is that the spring can get a little worn out, stretched, whatever. So no matter, it's just random where you put it, but you want to put this so that it's in the farthest out position. Then we'll get this pin back in here. There we go. And we'll push this button. It's trying. It's having a heck of a time pulling that thing all the way down. So either the solenoid or whatever's in here, this screw mechanism isn't pulling hard enough. Yeah, you can't cheat it that way. Because if that pin stays engaged, then the door can be unlocked from the outside without the keypad, because it'll just be engaged. So this thing does have to be in the unlocked position. It's got to be all the way down here, bottomed out. So we may have a case here of it just being sticky. So what I'm going to try and do is try to clean this all up so it's not quite so sticky, this hole here and also whatever this is sliding on, and this little slot and groove. Just try to clean that out and see if we can get this thing lubricated and working straight, working better. Because like I said, this pin here, that's really tacky. Ooh, don't lose that spring. So I've got a little starting fluid. I could also use brake fluid, I think. So I'm going to try and squirt this stuff and see if we can get it cleaned up a little bit. I'll put some WD-40 on there as a lubricant. Got that one all nice and shiny, clean. See if we got that slot cleaned out. The nice thing about using starting fluid or brake cleaner is that it will dry, and especially the brake fluid's actually the best because it doesn't apparently doesn't leave any residue. And once again, don't lose that spring. Oh, that's interesting. So this thing is actually a motor and it spins. And so the spring acts as a screw, but it also acts as a, gives it a little bit of compliance so that if something hangs it up, that it'll actually stretch and not bind up. Well, right or wrong, it's pretty dry. I'm going to use a little WD as a lubricant. So now you can see that, well, you can't see it spinning because it's covered by this plastic, but you'll see the spring come out on the bottom there. See how far it comes out extended because it's threading and it's trying to pull that thing. Well, it's pretty well seated. Let's get this thing in there. See if we can push against that pin, especially in the worst case positions, because if it's here, that's not hard to push on that pin. So the pin is all the way extended here towards the X, which means, of course, that it will engage with this sprocket in one of these teeth. And if something restricts it from going all the way up, then it's still spring loaded and it'll when this gets turned, it'll engage. So now if I turn this over to one side, let's see what happens. It looks like it's still working. Oops, didn't want to do that. Seemed to be working better. Maybe it was just gummed up. This thing feels pretty gummy too. Little WD-40 again. I have this place dripping in oil. All right, got the little spring, got the pin in, got this in, it's fully retracted. So we should be able to put this on, put a couple screws in there. Okay, so from the inside, I can rotate this to lock it. And released. So I'm going to do that again, and we'll see if this is turning, because this is the thing that engages with the we're going to call it the cylinder. And it does. It disengages very quickly. Looks like it's working. All right. So we can finish putting this side together. Oh, don't forget this. There we go. This will go on top of that. Wiggle that down and put a few screws in again. Here's again cold. Christmas was yesterday, and had a little warm day here, so I thought I'm going to dive into this. Use my mini screwdriver here. There we go. All right, I think we're ready to head back to the door and see if we can't get this thing put back together. All right, we're back at the door. And so the first step is to get this installed from the outside. Okay, we'll take this one, put the plug back through there, get that connected. It only goes on one way. Let's get that bar through here, through the cross. There we go, I think we got it. I'm pretty fortunate it's stuck in the hole pretty good, so I don't have to actually hold it while I put these screws in. And of course, before we snug this up, we want to make sure we've got this straight up and down on both sides, the outside of the door as well as the inside. Oops. Okay. So if I push it, I should be able to lock it just by hitting the enter button. Engages, disengages, that works pretty good. And we'll put this cover on. Make sure we got those lined up. Yep. Of course, these screws don't hold anything on except for this cover, so it doesn't have to be very tight. There we go. I think it's all fixed. So we'll try that for a few days and see if that took care of it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you got some use out of it. It's not that hard to take apart and clean it up a little bit if you're having some trouble with your Schlage BE365. Thanks. While I'm here, this is my other Schlage, and this is one I said that was eating batteries, presumably because it's always out in the cold. So added that adapter inside here, ran the couple wires out through the bottom, and then added this cover over the wires, and just ran that across over to here. Put a little loop in here so the door can open and close without pinching or kinking the wire. And I just ran that over to here, and then plugged it in here with a 9-volt power supply. Of course, the problem with this setup is that if you lose power, then you can't get the door open. Whereas normally if you lose power, these are battery operated and you can still use them.